Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 26, Monday, September 23rd, 2019.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and...
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back, listeners. I'm your host, Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Emily.
Hey, Courtney, and welcome back, listeners. We hope you enjoyed the Kingdom Keepers summer series. Courtney and I then took a little time for ourselves for some personal reading, some end of summer vacations, and for me, lots of back to school prep. But now we are back and have a lot of great episodes planned for this fall.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with us. In this episode, we'd like to welcome back another guest. You may have heard her on our 10th episode, where we interviewed her about tasting the magic from A to Z, the best food and beverages at Walt Disney World. We are joined once again by Theme Park Press author Trisha Daab. In her last book, we learned all about the delicious delicacies found around Walt Disney World, and in her latest series, The Story Comes Alive, we're focusing on the characters that make the magic come to life at Walt Disney World. This series groups different characters, princesses or the Fab Five, Marvel, Star Wars, and lets you know not only where you can meet some of your favorite characters, but also where you can find some hidden details for them throughout the parks. Welcome back, Trisha.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're glad to have you back.
So, Trisha, we're really excited to have you back. But to some of our listeners, you might be a brand new voice and author. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and also what you've been up to since we last had you on the show?
Well, so again, I'm just really excited to be back on the show. It's such a great, I love this idea of the Book of the Mouse Club. There's so many amazing books about Disney. The primary thing I've been up to is writing, in all honesty. As Emily had shared, I have this new series coming out, and it's actually a 5-book series. So most of my time since I last spoke with you has been spent on working on this series and doing all the research around it. But as Emily said, my name is Trisha Daab, and I actually have 4 books now about Disney World, and I write for the publisher Theme Park Press.
Awesome. Let's dive a little into this series. So there's currently 2 books available. You said there's 5. Can you just give kind of like a little overview of what The Story Comes Alive is?
Yes. So I always joke that people would always ask me 3 questions when they found out I knew stuff about Disney World. They would ask me, should I stay on property? Where should I eat? And then the third question was always something related to, I love this character, or my son is super into Mickey Mouse. And I realized one day that I was trying to help a neighbor find everything Mickey at Disney World for her son, who's a big fan. And I couldn't find everything in one place. I was searching in all these different places. And in some cases I was going, well, I know this exists, but I'm not seeing this in the list. And that really was the spark for the inspiration for the series. When I originally started writing this series about a year ago, I had thought, okay, it'll probably be 1 book. Maybe there'll be, 20 characters and movies that I'll cover, and it'll probably be about 50,000 words, which is somewhere between 45 and 50 is kind of the standard novel length. And 73 movies and characters later and 166,000 words, I was done. And I went, oh no, actually when I hit 75,000 words and I still wasn't through all of what I knew I needed to get through, I went, how's this going to work? And I actually reached out to my publisher and said, hey, I'm kind of running into this. Any thoughts? Depending on how we decide to go here, I just kind of want to write it accordingly if we decide to split this up. And that's when he said, well, why don't we split it up into a multiple book series? And then it was 2, and then 2 became 3. And then next thing we know, it became 5. And we really tried to kind of split them up, the 73, split them up in a way that it made sense to us. Sometimes there was a method to the madness. It doesn't always make sense to everybody, but the way kind of made sense to us just in terms of how we heard people talk about the things that they really loved about Disney and wanted to see.
That's really cool. I can't believe 73 characters right off the bat. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's movies and characters. So in some cases it'll be so in some cases it'll be like Song of the South, or it'll be I'm just looking at an example where it's not, you can't always meet the characters for some of these is what I was finding, but they have other things. There might be something in a ride, or there might be some kind of treat or that type of thing. But the character meet and greets, whenever there is one, it's definitely covered. And sometimes those characters are super tired at the end of the day because they are in a lot of places all throughout that day.
Right, and 73 that you came up with off the bat is a lot, but there's so many in the Disney canon. If we also include Star Wars and Marvel, how do you narrow down? I know 73 is a lot, but that's still not every character, every movie or story. How did you pick?
Yeah, it's funny. My daughter was like, "Oh, I loved Lizzie McGuire. Are you going to include Lizzie McGuire?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't even think they have anything Lizzie McGuire anymore, unless you like get lucky and see Hilary Duff like walking around the park with her kids." But so some of it, if there really was just nothing for a movie or a specific character, if there really truly was just absolutely nothing, that was one that I excluded. And there were some, and I have to be honest, I cannot think of any off the top of my head because there's so many that were in that I had not expected. I also talk about the things that are to come. So Tron is an example of something where besides seeing the construction area and the billboard that they have on the railroad, there's not too much Tron that you'll see walking around the park, but there's going to be a roller coaster. So it was one of the things I did include Tron because of what is to come. In some cases, I included things that maybe they have just kind of a light touch in the parks now, but there was something in the past that was much bigger. Hercules is one of those where you're seeing more and more of Hades around the park. So you may not be able to meet that many of the characters or meet any of them. I'm trying to think back if there's a way to meet any of them, but you could see them in different ways. And so I think, as one of you said in the intro, which I thought was great, is just also the hidden details. So it's not just the meeting and greeting with the characters, but it's also the little hidden details they put all over Walt Disney World, in the resorts, in the parks, in Disney Springs, that you can have those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your later editions are going to get into Star Wars and Marvel as well, right?
Yeah. So Volume 5 is Star Wars and Marvel. And we kind of put that one last very specifically because when we originally were looking at the timing, it was looking like that one would come out potentially before Star Wars even opened. We were like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's wait. And so I will actually be at Disney World in February.
Yay!
And going to Galaxy's Edge and experience it first. I'm so excited for the creature section. I was always obsessed with Ewoks when I was a kid.
Yes.
So I'm going to go and then be able to talk about it firsthand, which is always the better thing, is to be able to say, this is actually what it's like. So on my trips that I went last year to Disney World, I was there a number of times. I kept trying to check things off the list that I knew were in the books that were things that I hadn't done. So I met a lot more characters than I ever have on trips last year.
Yeah, we talked last time a bit about kind of doing the same thing for the Tasting to Magic, but I'd love to know, how was writing this book different than writing that one, or even your original Not So Evil Stepmother in the Most Magical Place on Earth?
Yeah, this series required so much more research, and research in some cases it was research I couldn't do at Disney. I live in Chicago, so it's not a hop, skip, and a jump to get down to Orlando. And I also have a job and a family, so I can't spend as much time as I'd like to. but what I did was listen to a number of different podcasts. One of them that was also kind of an inspiration for this is the Mouse Knows Best podcast. They were talking about the royal rooms at Port Orleans Riverside, and I went, oh my gosh, like I have to make sure I include that. And then looking at a couple of different YouTubers that did very detailed, like they're the type that they really get into the details of different places. There's some resort tours where they really hit everything, so you can kind of really get a sense of, are there things that might be kind of hidden around a resort, not necessarily just the obvious ones like art of animation. Looking at other books, just lots and lots and lots of research. So this pulls in a lot of that, and then also going and seeing things myself. But what I wanted to make sure was everything that I was finding, I could find visual confirmation that this actually had something. So in some cases, people would talk about, oh, it has this, or it has this, or this character's in here, this character's in here. And I was kind of like, I want to see it with my own two eyes. And so I would want to ensure that there really was visual confirmation, because sometimes people confuse Disneyland and Disney World when they're posting is one of the things I definitely found. Because there was one I was like, they don't do this at Disney World. I know for a fact this does not happen at Disney World, but very clearly says Disney World. So I think, it's one of those things, those definitely super fans know that they're not the same place, but sometimes I think folks just do get a little confused. And so I was like, I have to confirm it's actually Disney World. And I had a whole list of people that are APs and that live in the area that I would say, hey, can you tell me about this? Have you seen this? Did you see anything like this while you were at the Incredibles party, or that type of thing? To be able to include those also.
So you mentioned lots of research. And we talked about your research a bit on our last episode with you back in episode 10, but what was the research process like specifically for this series?
It was going to the parks a lot and doing a lot of character meet and greets, doing more character meals than I tend to do. And I think I spent a lot less time on personal experiences and more on just kind of very typical type of research, like a very similar kind of typical nonfiction research, where you're really trying to understand what it is that you're writing about and finding many, many, many sources that you use. And so there's a little bit less of a narrative style in this than what I've had in the first two books. So it's far less opinions. I do share some opinions, but it's more in some cases a statement of fact and some descriptions. I do try to describe things how I see them. And, Disney obviously has their very specific descriptions of them, but, whether it's a nighttime show or an attraction or what this meet and greet is like. But these definitely have a little bit less narrative, but I have confirmed with a couple of fans that I have that they've said it still feels like I'm reading one of your books. So your voice is still in there. So that's always actually speaking to answer your question, that's one of the things that actually was really hard with this series, was trying to keep yourself it's going to keep my personality in there when there's so much information to deliver. And so it was nice to have a confirmation from someone saying, like, I definitely feel like I'm reading one of your books, which is good. Because I try not to just write like a typical guidebook of here's a list of a bunch of facts.
I can definitely see that come through, like all of the well-researched, but having the voice. But we were curious, how would you want readers to approach this book? Do you think they should read it all the way through, or do you see it more like a guide, maybe not as traditional, but okay, I like this character, I'm going to flip here and look into that?
I definitely think that that's what most people are going to do. I've kind of learned over the years now that I'm on book 4, and all my book writing wisdom, as I say this with a lot of sarcasm, because there are people out there that are much more experienced authors, and definitely Disney authors than I. But I've kind of found that I have almost kind of two groups of fans and people who read my books. One is people that are like, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed by the idea of going to this place. And so a lot of time it's either first timers or people who haven't gone since they were kids. And someone said to me the other day, and I thought it was so insightful, they said, this narrowed it down for me. It kind of gave me direction. Because if you're looking at Disney World from a different perspective, and you're like, oh my God, there are 4 theme parks, 23 resorts, 300 plus restaurants, and like how in golf courses, that for some folks is really overwhelming, and they're just like, how do I decide what to do? And somebody said, this helped narrow it down for me. I didn't only do the things that you said, but it gave me some purpose. It gave me kind of a different purpose, because I really love The Little Mermaid. And I really wanted to make sure I saw everything Little Mermaid. That was something that became a priority. So I kind of see that group. And then the other one is just the super fans that just love everything Disney and want to see, can somebody tell me about something maybe I don't know, or tell me about an experience, or does it spark that memory? Does reading it remind me of the first time that I met Mickey, or that time at that character meal that, Lady Tremaine walked up to my table and, stared me down because of the shirt I was wearing, or, I've heard so many people just kind of say it triggered these stories and these memories for them. So I really think that people in general will tend to go to those chapters first, and then maybe bounce around and find characters that they didn't even realize that they loved.
I think Emily and I are very similar. We're the super fans because we were kids. We joked on one of our other episodes. We read the Birnbaum's Guide for Kids for fun. We didn't need it because we had gone many times. But we're like, I just want to get that Disney fix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. And I found things that I didn't know existed in your books, because especially that first chapter, I'm a big Mickey fan. And I have found stuff, like for me, I am not well versed in resorts the way Courtney is. So like there was so many things like Bay Lake Tower and around Yacht and Beach Club of all these different Mickeys that I'm like, I want to go see these. I didn't know these were there. I've never been to the Santa Summer Golf Court, mini golf.
The Summerland?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only ever done Fantasia. So like there's so many things that, even though I've been so many times and I've lived there for 6 months in my program, that I found things that I haven't done.
Well, that is like the best endorsement ever. Like that, it's so funny you say it, because I have a friend that's one of my readers, and she's an AP, and she's just a super Disney fan. And she had the book for maybe like a day or two, and she said she was only a couple of pages in, and I already told her something that she didn't know. And I was like, okay, box checked. Like when you can tell someone who is a super fan a new thing that they can discover, like that right there makes the 200 and something hours of research worth it.
You mentioned Song of the South. I'm definitely looking forward to getting into that book and all, like getting into some of those more obscure characters and films. So I can't wait to see those details as well.
Yeah, they definitely, the next volume that's coming out, so volume 3 will cover a lot more of that. You'll see a lot more of the obscure, where there isn't an entire list by park like you see with the princesses, or even with the Fab Five. I mean, there's so much princess and there's so much Fab Five, but volume 3 gets into classic movies, basically from the start through 1999, and also gets into some of the characters that have been created specifically for Disney parks. So things like Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, Country Bears. So it gets into some of those, as well as movies, Pinocchio, Peter Pan. One of my personal favorites from my childhood, Fox and the Hound, which is one of the ones that I can tell you, I was determined to find something, and I found something that I think they're probably going to refurbish away, but I'm like, I'm keeping the chapter in because it just meant so much to me to find anything.
Is it the bedspread at Saratoga Springs?
It is the bedspread, and I'm like, this is probably going to go away, but I'm going to mention it. And I think there may be something in the new version of Rivers of Light. Because it's projected on water, it's so hard to see in a video. So I haven't seen that show live yet. I will in February. But I even said in there, I don't know for a fact that this is, and I haven't been able to find anything that anyone has said this is a moment. I'm like, but there's a Fox, so we're just gonna, Fox and the Hound fans, we're just gonna take it. Even if it's not, we're just gonna take it. We'll take a very, very small win, because there are not a lot, sadly, that we can have. But
yeah.
But this book definitely has a lot of that. So it's anything that wasn't a Pixar movie or a Disney princess film or like a Fab Five. So this book kind of has a lot more, more obscure and things that really don't have much is in this one.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that just because I'm sure you had to switch up your formula a bit. Like, I could tell your clear structure reading through the Fab Five, but it'll be fun to see how you play with more of those obscure things.
Yeah, there isn't going to be a whole section on meet and greets. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that was something that was really hard to determine the structure, especially when you're looking at something that has a vast difference in what it offers from, Mickey Mouse, who there's so much, there's so many ways to experience that character, and there's statues in so many resorts. I mean, Emily, you mentioned a number of things that you found in the book, but then on the flip side, you have something like Aristocats, which is very small, but there are a few things, and there are a few things that are kind of subtle that if you don't know to look, you wouldn't know, oh, wait a minute, this might be a place that I can find something. But I will say Marie is probably one of the creepiest looking characters I've seen.
When she and I were pretty good friends during my college program. She was really fun to hang out with around the flagpole. A lot of kids love Marie. She's a pretty white kitty.
She is, and I love her pink bow, and she was one that I kept trying to find, when can you kind of confirm? And so she's one of those ones that it's worth asking because you'll always find that big fan and a cast member that can tell you. I know for the next volume, so the next one coming out is volume 3, and then volume 4 will have Disney movies after 2000 as well as all of Pixar. And so in volume 4, that's where I get into some of the Disney Channel shows, and my son is a huge Phineas and Ferb fan. And I was so upset when they took that meet and greet out of Hollywood Studios, which they had to take it away. I understand for Star Wars and Toy Story, but they are so fun to meet. And I actually saw someone the other day post a picture that they got to meet Phineas and Ferb at Magic Kingdom. And I was like, what? And they're just sometimes randomly popping up there. And so I'm excited. I'm like, okay, thank goodness I can at least say, all right, it's one to at least ask. There's not a situation where there's no way you're ever going to see him again. So, but yeah, Instagram's another great source because people post pictures from their trips all the time. And so you can see some of those things that, just little things that Disney will do just to surprise and delight guests.
Yeah, was it Character Central is an Instagram account that I follow, and they post from all over the park, so you do have to read the fine print. Like, are they posting from about Paris or Tokyo? Because they'll post all these different character pictures. So it can be hard to tell sometimes, but they put it in all the hashtags, like which park they're at. And that's how I found out about the Phineas and Ferb, and that I think it was for the 90th anniversary, all these Mickey Minnie celebrations, they were having all these different characters come out, like Robin Hood and Friar Tuck and Prince John, all these characters that like you never get to meet.
And you can continue to meet them until September 30th.
So I wonder where Phineas and Ferb will go next, because they are popular. I don't see them
They're going to have a movie on Disney
going away.
Plus. So
yeah, I'm so
alive.
Absolutely. I think with that movie, and it was such a smart cartoon.
Oh, 100% agree.
I used to watch it with my son, like, okay, this is a cartoon that doesn't make me want to pull my hair out. Because some of the stuff, it's just being a kid. Like, I remember watching stuff that my parents were like, ah, but yeah, it was so witty and so funny. So I'm hoping with Disney Plus coming and the movie coming out that we'll see a little bit more of them. But their meet and greet, did you get a chance ever to meet them when they were at Hollywood Studios with their kind of backyard setup?
I did. Emily, was that still there on your program? Were you able to meet Phineas and Ferb on your program, or had that closed back in Hollywood Studios?
I believe they were still there. I believe they were still there in Hollywood Studios, or it was right when it transitioned to having... No, because where was Cars? There was a Cars meet and greet.
Yeah, that was back by Lights, Motors, Action, but I can't remember when everything closed.
I can't either. I think they were there because I had some friends of Phineas and Ferb. I personally didn't get to hang out in the backyard, but I had some other friends that did. So I think it was right. I was there right when there was that transition.
And it's a fun one. They would play music, and I remember we met them with Oliver at the time. When were we there? So it was 2015. So he would have been 7 or 8, and he had such a good time. They started playing a song, so they had it set up so it sounded like a radio station was on, like one of the local radio stations from the show. And the song came on, and both the characters just stopped everything and started dancing. And so Oliver's like, well, I'm just going to go out there and do this with you. So we have this great video of him just like doing these crazy dance moves, and they just loved it. It was so fun. So I hope they bring out maybe a little bit of that back. And especially with the 50th coming, there's going to be so many opportunities. I mean, it's hard to even know all of what will happen with the 50th and what special things and special characters might be coming.
So talking about these different characters in these different volumes, you mentioned at the top of the show, you've now published 4 books, and we love to ask our authors about this. Since you've told us your publishing process in the last episode we had you on, we want to know, does it get easier the more books you publish?
It actually does. There's a couple of things that get easier. One, you have a better sense of in the promotion space, which can be a difficult part. I'm someone who's an extrovert. I love talking to people, but I meet some authors that part of being an author, it is a very lonely process. And there are some folks that really like the isolation that goes with it. I'm one of those ones that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to talk to people. It's so exciting. And podcasts especially are so fun to do. But I definitely would say in that space, in the promotion space, have learned a lot about where to spend time and what things work. And also just, what makes it even more fun is getting the chance to meet more people, building that community and connecting with people. The other thing that gets easier is you understand the publishing process. You know how it's going to work. You're going to submit this manuscript, and a couple months later, you're going to get this piece that's laid out, and then you got to do that edit process. So you're able, and you also kind of know how much time it takes. So it does help with planning. The writing, yes and no in terms of easier, because each book, at least for me, is a bit different. But it's definitely gotten funner because I've met more people and I've been able to incorporate those experiences into the writing. So I had a couple of different people that I interviewed as part of this process for this book. A lot of them that I met actually through writing, and so they kind of lended their voice as experts. And so that was neat because there are so many things that I think if you're just not there all the time, you just wouldn't know. And so being able to kind of get those ideas from them and get their experiences and their thoughts was really a fun part of the process. And knowing how to incorporate that piece is a little bit easier now that I'm on book 4.
Yeah, I think adding other voices, has a bit of authenticity to it because so many people experience the parks in different ways. Last time we got to talk about some cast members who made an impact on your food experience. Were there any cast members that informed your writing of this series?
Absolutely. One of the cast members is someone that I had actually interviewed for the food book, so I got a chance to interview him again. And it had been a very different conversation with him. I think there were a couple of times that he was kind of like, what are we talking about? Before it was all food. Now this is very, very different questions. I had someone who was a former college program person that actually went back for the college program as an alum, and she was there during the Toy Story opening, so it was really neat to kind of talk to her about some of that. I talked to a couple of folks that are podcasters. One interview that I was really excited about was Serena from Living by Disney. She was someone that I got to interview. I really love her account and her newsletter. She just talks about everything in a way that just really appeals to me. she's not afraid to share her opinions, but it doesn't seem like she's necessarily looking for the problem. She's very honest of like, if you like super sweet things, you're going to love this. I'm not a fan, but if you do, this will be great. And she has a lot of great tips that I was able to incorporate. I also interviewed someone who runs marathons because I don't run marathons. And I knew I needed to write about that because it's such a great way to meet characters. But I was like, I'm not running, so I need to talk to somebody who will.
I appreciated seeing that. I'm currently training for the Dopey, which is where you do the 5K, 10K, half, and full. So hoping to see a lot of characters on that course.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I wrote about in volume 2 with Princesses, is I love the fact that one of the single most klutzy characters in all of Disney history has the single hardest run. I was like, somebody really has a good sense of humor that they called that the Dopey Marathon.
I'm like you, Trisha. I'm not the one doing the running, but I'm always a little like, maybe I will do a half marathon solely because I want to meet the characters along the way, not because I'm interested in beating a time or running in any way. I just really want to see some of these characters.
I'm still holding out for Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, he's one. It's just amazing too. I think one they had like Chef Louis.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even know they had this one. And then also the costumes. That was another piece that for me, I love that they have so many different costumes that you can see the characters in. It's so neat. Like they just like us, they plan what they're going to wear on Halloween. And so that was another thing that was really neat is at the marathons, you'll get to see Mickey wearing something that you won't see him wear any other time. I saw one where Minnie was dressed like almost like an Italian. She looked almost like a little like Italian mama, like she was going to yell at you to eat your pasta. And I was like, that's just so good. You're just so cute and so clever. So that was another piece that I really liked writing about was the costumes. And I found some people totally picked up on that they were like, oh, it was so neat to read about, I want to go to this so I can see, Mickey's outfit that he wears for this. And that would be a huge appeal for some people. And other people are like, what's with all the costumes?
How did you figure out how many costumes were? Because you mentioned there were over 250, if I remember right, Mickey costumes? That Mickey has a huge wardrobe.
Mickey has a huge wardrobe. I believe there was a website that I found. And I know I have it. I have a list of all of my sources that I keep. So I have a list of all these places. And there was a website I found that this is someone who has visited characters all over the world, and it really feels like to someone who really tries to meet as many characters as possible. And so I counted, and then I kind of figured out like, well, I had these ones. Does she have those ones covered? And like even in Fantasmic, if I remember correctly, I think he has 4 or 5 different costume changes in that show alone. And I just counted it. I watched the show and I counted how many different costumes he wore during that show. So sometimes it's really not very high tech.
I really think someone needs to make a Mickey outfit of the day Instagram account just to catalog all of his. He has a bigger wardrobe than Minnie. That's insane.
Yeah,
that was go shopping.
And you would think, I think with the Rocking the Dots that she is kind of catching up to him. I'm looking in here. So that's 1. I'm just counting really quick. 1, 2, 3. So he has at least 3 costume changes in Fantasmic at Hollywood
That's
Studios.
why they have separate homes. They wouldn't be able to share a closet.
No, they couldn't. He'd have to have like an entire house that's just his closet. Sorry, he does 4 costume changes. My favorite is when I think I said it looks like he was Disney bounding Snow White, which I thought was kind of fun. He obviously wasn't, but it looked like he was.
The battle scene. I can see that. Kind of like in that vibe.
Yeah, is that his Prince and the Pauper?
I always thought it was Brave Little Tailor, but the colors are off. So I think it's kind of just
maybe
a reminiscence of all of those.
Yeah, his romantic Disney short days.
Yeah.
So speaking of all these different experiences. You have a tips section in the back of your book that goes along with your other appendix that kind of outlines how to use this book to reader's advantage. Any tips that you want to highlight for listeners? Like
Definitely.
your top two.
Oh, my top two. Okay. Well, I would
Maybe
say maybe three, because this was actually a really fun one to do because it was one thing that I asked when I interviewed all the different experts that I talked to is what's your tip? And just to the point that you made earlier, their tips were so vastly different because the DCP mom and daughter pair that I spoke with are talking from a very different perspective than somebody who lives 10 minutes from Disney World and is there all the time. That's going to bring a different perspective versus a cast member. So that was what was really neat. I was a little concerned that I was going to hear a lot of the typical stuff, but they really came back with all sorts of things. I think really a very useful tip is that they do have a master list of characters that you can talk to guest services to see if you might be able to visit and meet your favorite. And they can kind of help you with where to find it. So I thought that was a really great tip from Serena Living by Disney. I'm just looking really quick at some of the other ones. I also like the Photo Pass Day. I didn't know that existed. For National Photo Day, I think that's in August. That seems like if you're going to go, if you are all about the characters, if you're not willing to run, that is an event to go to because they had so many different characters that popped out and different props and photo pass magic shots and everything. And then the third one I would say was the Facebook account that's for PhotoPass, where you can look and find where all the magic shots are. I know some people really love those. I kind of like the surprise aspect of them. But there's a Facebook account and you can see by park, where there's PhotoPass shots and where they're at and how to find them.
That's one I didn't know about until I read your book, was the PhotoPass Facebook.
I'd love to know, too, if Emily has any tips, just having spent time in that character world.
I really like the tip that you had in there. I forget if it was something you wrote or one that came from one of your sources. So two things I have. So that first one is talk to the characters about their worlds. How they live and their friends and their adventures. So it helps really facilitate that interaction and kind of break up some of the awkwardness if you don't know what to say to Ariel. Ask her how Flounder's doing. Mm-hmm. What's Sebastian up to today? And it really, if you pull in the story, they'll talk to you about their friends. My other tip is for some of our more Fab 5 characters. Like Mickey does have really big hands and really big plushy gloves to keep his hands warm and protected in the Florida sun. I would suggest if you have a marker or a pen, something that is thicker, like those really big giant pens that some parents find annoying that you can buy. Actually, Mickey loves writing with those. They're easier for him to hold in his big gloves.
Good to know. I'll throw in on the more of the resort side, because I definitely, being a resorts person, loved those little details. And I'd say, as a reminder, you don't have to be staying at a resort to visit it. I remember when Art of Animation opened in 2012, it was exciting. It was a brand new resort. My mom and I didn't live here yet. We were on vacation at the time, and we're like, oh, we're at Animal Kingdom. Let's just take the bus over to Art of Animation, walk around and see it, and then, took the bus back to the park and got back to our own resort. So maybe make a dinner reservation or just pop over to see it. And I'll say, if you're here during the holidays, Christmas is a wonderful time to see the resorts decorated, and there's even more details then.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was something, one of the first visits that I really remember. We were there after Thanksgiving, and it was just amazing, like the carousel inside Beach Club and the gingerbread houses all over the place. And so that was something that was important to me to include in this, because there's almost not a season where they're not doing something special anymore. There's always something. So that was something that in some of the lists, so there are some really great web resources where they have a lot of things on the list. Sometimes they didn't cover the seasonal. And so that was one of the things I did want to make sure that I included in here, was those different things that you may not realize you could see, and you can see something different because you decided to go in the springtime, and you could see these fabulous 1920s outfits at Minnie's Dine at Hollywood Studios. Like, those outfits are so great.
Those are still on my bucket list because I do love the holidays, and there's so much to see, but I'd wonder if there's anything that you think a first-time visitor must experience. I know it's different to every guest, but if you could only give them one thing.
I would honestly say, I think meet and greets can be overwhelming for some folks, especially princesses can be intimidating. I have some folks that have shared that with me. So I do feel that the character meals can be maybe sometimes a little bit less intimidating way to meet the characters. You're not in front of a group of people that you might be somewhere else, or in front of strangers. You're getting that kind of one-on-one time, and it is a bit more casual. So I really think doing some sort of character meal, especially if you have a favorite, a character meal is a great way to do it, because sometimes the characters too they're getting to interact with each other. We saw Lady Tremaine and Anastasia yelling at each other at 1900 Park Fair, and it was perfect because it was like, yes, she would yell at her for this, and so she was getting frustrated with the two of them because they were very loud. So I think those are such a great way to really experience those stories and see those stories come alive.
Do you have a favorite of the character dining?
I think my favorite is going to be one I haven't done yet. Actually, I love 1900 Park Fair. I thought that was so fun. I had heard that Lady Tremaine was there, and especially because my book, was called The Not So Evil Stepmother, I knew I had to meet her. And so we got to meet Anastasia and Drusilla before Lady Tremaine came. And so they had actually yelled at her that I wrote a book about her. And so she was very, very reserved excitement about the fact that I took the time to write a book about her. And, she, of course, signed a copy of it for me, which was very exciting. That's a great one. I'm really excited for the Snow White one, the storybook dining. I'm going to be doing that when I'm there in February. I love that you can meet the evil queen. That's neat. I also like when they theme the food, when they take the time to really kind of theme the food. That just really takes everything to a whole new level. And I've also heard Bon Voyage is a great one for that, where they do a lot of theming with the food. So I think those two.
I was just talking to my friend Leanne about that. We were at dinner this evening, and she was like, we were over by the yacht club. She's like, have you done the breakfast at Boardwalk? And I'm like, no, it's on my bucket list. So it comes highly recommended. Definitely one to check out.
Yeah, I had a couple of folks. That was another neat part about talking to different people, because even people who go to Disney all the time, there's so many things that you're not going to be able to do. I wonder if there's anyone who's done everything. But it was interesting to get some of those things too, that people other people may not have even had a chance to experience that, or especially at the resorts. Those I think are also really good character meals to go to, because they can sometimes be a little less crowded.
Yeah, I've lived in Orlando for 5 years now, and there's stuff I still haven't done. I think even as we've talked about in your last book, new stuff gets added all the time, which I'm sure can be a challenge. You have a great disclaimer that this is at the time of publishing. But yeah, the Snow White, I don't think that's even been around a whole year yet, also on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I'm sure Emily's too.
My mom did it and she absolutely loved it. And it was not fair because I'm at school, I'm teaching, and I'm getting pictures while in between classes. She's like, I met Dopey, I met Snow White, here's the evil queen. And I'm like, I'm grading papers. This is great. So she absolutely loved it because her favorite is Dopey. And she loves any time she can meet the dwarves. So she was thrilled that she also got to meet Grumpy, because it's very rare to meet all of them. Like you say in your book for Not So Scary, you get to meet all 7. They all come out together, and that was top of my bucket list when I was in my college program. I was like, if I do nothing else at this party but meet all 7 dwarves, it was well worth it. So she absolutely loved it, and it comes highly recommended from everyone I know that's done it. I'm very jealous you're getting to do that in February.
Yes, I'm so excited for that one. So that's what I said. Don't be on my Instagram at that point, because you'll be like, ah.
Well, I'm hoping to make it down maybe even around the same time, January, February. The school year is kind of at a place where if I wanted to take a trip during the school year when it's a little less crowded in Florida and when the weather is not as hot, I usually can get down there in January or February. So I'm hoping to swing another trip shortly. So, hey, if we run into the same time frame, maybe I'll run into you there.
Absolutely. That would be so fun.
And I'm always here, so, you know, all get together. That'd be
Definitely.
fun.
Well, I do have to tell you, Emily, as you're speaking about teacher schedules. So in November, I went with a girlfriend of mine and I'd never done that before. I've gone by myself, I've gone with my husband, I've gone with her family, but I'd never gone with a friend. So we traveled together and everything. And this was her first time going without her kids. And we had so much fun. Oh my goodness. We were at Magic Kingdom until 2:00 in the morning. We didn't realize they were filming the holiday specials. And so we just randomly saw Megan Trainor. We didn't know she was going to be there. We got to see Sarah Hyland. So it was so crazy. We were like, it's 1:45 in the morning and we're still here. We did a 3-park day that day. I think we walked, she was tracking it. We walked 12 miles that day because we did Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Magic Kingdom. And that was an experience. But the best part of the trip was there was an issue with our reservation, and Disney being Disney totally came through. They were so apologetic, but basically we got to the airport to Magical Express and they were like, yeah, your reservation was canceled. We don't know why. So we were staying at Caribbean Beach and they called over to the hotel and the hotel's like, we've got rooms. It's fine. Just send them over. We'll figure it out when they're here. But it's fine. Just send them. So everyone's really nice about it. But we got there and they said, well, we're going to upgrade you. As an apology, we're so sorry. That had to be very stressful. We don't want you to start your magical vacation that way. So we're going to upgrade you. So I'm sure both of you, or at least one of you, know what the upgraded room at Caribbean Beach is.
Is it the pirate?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
2 fully grown women climbing in pirate beds every night. And they're
It's
legit
a fun
pirate
room.
beds.
That's amazing.
Well, they look like a ship. It's awesome. I don't know if you've seen them, Emily, but we stayed in one a few summers ago, and it's very one of the most themed rooms I've ever seen.
Oh, it's almost even more themed, I feel like, than some of the Art of Animation rooms. Those have a lot more with the artwork.
That's true.
But in terms of this bed, we were climbing up a boat to climb in this bed, and there were times that I was just like, no one would even believe us if we said this and didn't have photo evidence. But it was really big. And both of us, the crazy part is both of us have sons that at the time were 10. So our sons would have been like, this is the coolest thing ever. And we're both like, there's pirate beds. Our fridge is a barrel. Our dresser is a bunch of crates. It was just so neat. I mean, it's one of those times that you're like, I'm so glad I had that experience.
Absolutely.
It's like taking that childhood dream of having the red race car bed to a whole new level.
Oh yeah. There's rigging and the lights are on the rigging that's on the wall, and there's a skull and crossbones in the shower, on the shower curtain. Yes.
Wow. I have to Google that because I have not seen these rooms. But I think you uncovered a whole nother tip there, which is travel with other people that maybe you don't normally go to Disney with, because you get whole new experiences. Now, that was a lot of extra magic, but you probably did things with your friend that your kids or your husband, maybe you haven't done before, or you got to do things in a whole new way. Even if you've ridden that ride 1,000 times, now you're riding it with someone new, so you're experiencing it with them and how they're seeing things, and it's a whole new trip that way.
Absolutely. I've never done a 3-park day, so that was, and she was just such a trooper. She was like, let's do it. She was excited. She was like, I'm getting to do this in a totally different way too, because of just some of the stuff that, and I feel like, oh man, the expectations are really high. I better not disappoint her. But I've never stayed at a park until, it's almost empty. They were still doing some of the filming when we were there. So there were still some people in the park, but even just to see that and like seeing them turn the lights on and off on the castle was hysterical. There was a poor photo press photographer that was trying to get the beautiful castle that's covered in all the icicles because Elsa freezes the castle that time of year, and it's so beautiful. And they were filming part of the intro where they were lighting up the castle, so they kept turning the lights on and off. And this poor photo press photographer is like, "Come on!" Like every time he would get the people that they were about to take the shot, the lights would go off. It was just like, So it was just a completely different experience to see that. It was really, really fun.
That's awesome. And Trisha, we want to know, so what's next for you? Aside from this series, we know about your future trip in February, but like what else is coming up from the Not So Evil Stepmother?
I honestly don't know at this point. I think I just need to get through this series. As you both said, Disney changes things all the time. So basically what happens is I have to rewrite whole portions of the book as it gets closer to coming out to try to keep it as updated as I can. So I feel like I have not yet finished writing any of these yet until they're out. And then I see things that changed and I get very angry at myself. Like, why didn't I wait one more week? But so I haven't decided what the next project is. I've had a couple of different ideas and a couple of different, I've had people tell me they want Story Comes Alive for Disneyland, which I thought, oh my goodness, because there is so much there. I mean, there's so much at Disney World, but so many subtle things at Disneyland. I was like, oh gosh, I don't know that I can do that. And I don't know Disneyland the way that I do Disney World. So yeah, I don't know exactly. When I started this whole process, I told myself I was going to write 5 books and then kind of pause and see. Once this full series comes out, I'll have written 7. So, and I'm determined I'm going to get the series out. So there's no stopping at book 5, which will be next, which is just crazy to me to think about that it'll be 5 books. But yeah, so it definitely will be getting these 7 and then kind of figuring out what'll be the next one. I have lots of ideas.
It sounds like you have a good excuse for a trip to Disneyland right
now.
Yeah.
Research and firsthand research is important, Trisha. Very important.
Absolutely. I had someone that said, we're going to do a GoFundMe. And I'm like, it's not necessarily about, like, part of it, too. I mean, you're both in this side of the country. You understand getting to Disney World is so much easier than getting to California. I can go to Disney and be there for 4 days at Disney World and really have almost 4 full days there with travel. That's not going to happen for me going from Chicago to California. So I'm gonna work on it. But I do have a good friend of mine that she has actually come out with a Disneyland dining guide. So I got to read her books and found even more reason that I need to go to Disneyland.
Oh, absolutely. We always like to leave our listeners with some resources. We've certainly talked about your books, Tasting the Magic from A to Z and The Not So Evil Stepmother and The Most Magical Place on Earth, as well as your first appearance on our show in episode 10. But you list a lot of resources in the back of your book. Are there any ones that you'd like to point our listeners to?
Well, definitely your podcast.
Well, thanks.
I also enjoy, as I mentioned, the Mouse Knows Best podcast. It's a fun group, and they do different theme shows. One of their shows, they talked about like rides, like the history of rides, and the history of Space Mountain is crazy.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know if you remember, but I worked at Space Mountain on my college program, so I'm absolutely adding that to my queue.
Yeah. So they do a lot of fun stuff. I always have a good time with them. From a website perspective, there's just so many. Chip & Co. is a website that they do a lot of information on characters and keep things pretty up to date. So they were one that I referenced and looked at. And obviously, Disney World's website, they seem to be doing a little bit better trying to group some of those things together and keep them together. Because if you just search on Mickey, I think the last time I searched on Mickey Mouse on just DisneyWorld.com, 300 things came up, which is probably not all that crazy, but it's a little overwhelming. You're just kind of like, what am I even looking at? So, but it's a great resource, and the app, the My Disney Experience app for characters is such a great resource, especially when you're there. And I love the mobile ordering. That's
same. That was
nice. And it's like, oh, you like see the people that you're beating in line, like you're already done eating and they're not even getting their food yet. It's like, yes, mobile ordering. The Tim Tracker was a site that I was a YouTuber that I watched a number of his YouTube channels or his YouTube videos. He does very detailed resort walks. I felt so bad for him at the end of the Saratoga Springs because that thing is just so huge. And then he went over to Disney Springs. I was like, you have endless energy, sir. And then also Living by Disney, as I mentioned, I think she's a great resource. She really offers a fabulous perspective on the park, amazing tips. She keeps you pretty up to date on all that's going on, and in a very user friendly way. And she's just really fun and really fun to watch too.
So listeners, we want to leave you also with the next thing that we're going to be doing in our next episode. So we're going to dive once again into our fairy tale favorites, where we'll be discussing Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid in celebration of the film's 30th anniversary. And there are plenty of places you can find the story, but if you want to read along the same version as me and Courtney, we'll be reading the story from the Barnes & Noble Classic series.
In the meantime, you can keep up with us on social media. We are at Book of the Mouse on Twitter and Instagram. And you can email us with comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. You can find me, Courtney, on Instagram at GreatGuthsby or on Twitter at Courtney_Guth.
And you can find me, Emily, on Instagram and Twitter at Emily_McD. And Trisha, please tell us where our listeners can keep up with you.
Yes, on Instagram, my Instagram is @NotSoEvil_Disney Stepmom, and then I'm also on Facebook at author Trisha Daab.
Wonderful. We always like to have our authors close out with a little quote. Would you like to do the honors?
I absolutely would. I'm actually going to read a quote that's from the show at Magic Kingdom called Happily Ever After. And for those super fans out there, you know exactly where the tie-in between Happily Ever After and the phrase "the story comes alive" comes from. So I will tell you, I had struggled a lot with what to call this book. And one day as I was writing, that song came on. And as soon as I heard the phrase "the story comes alive," I thought, oh, there it is. That, like, I couldn't figure out what to call it, and there we go. And it just embodied it perfectly. But the quote that I'm going to read is actually from the end of the show, and it's as follows. Grab a hold of your dreams and make them come true, for you are the key to unlocking your own magic. Now go. Let your dreams guide you. Reach out and find your happily ever after.
Oh, I got chills. I love that.
I love it. I absolutely love the new fireworks show.
Well, it's such a good one. And thank you again for joining us. We hope our listeners enjoyed it as much as we did and have a magical evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, listeners, for joining us. And thank you, Trisha.
Thank you.
Book of the Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.